black, I'm not white, I'm a brownie. So that was interesting. I never responded to it. But again, for a disclaimer to my audience, let me tell you that we are not going to discuss about the segregation, about the laws, about the history. We all know. We can debate whole 9 yards, 24/7. This is not going to help us. We all know about the laws, about the segregation, the things that went wrong in America. We all know about the history. With all due respect, I'm not disputing anybody's intellect or knowledge about the American history, about the laws, about Jim Crow that I have been taunted upon. No. What I'm going to discuss is that America is a superpower. America is the sole superpower. We have a capitalistic society. So, what is the way forward? Let's not talk about and whine about the past. Going forward, is there an opportunity now that all the people of color, black, white, and browns, can we take this country forward? Is there a way? So, fortunately, I have Todd Shea with me as my guest. Why Todd? Because Todd not only good American citizens, very knowledgeable within America, but also an international exposure. So he can relate to different colors, different religion, and different cultures. Todd, it's your turn. Please introduce to our audience your background, where were you born, your background, and then we'll come back to subject matter. Go ahead, Todd.
Thank you, sir. The first thing I'd like to say, Sir G, is that you are an American citizen and you have uh, worked hard in this country. You have every right. Your voice, anybody of any color, in any persuasion, in any background, in any religion, in this country has a right to speak and has a right to be heard. So I don't think anybody should be silencing anybody right now. There should be conversations, and people should be open to listen to all. Just because they're not, is that I'm an Irish American, 1/4 Lithuanian American, 3/4 Irish. And I grew up in Laurel, Maryland, in Columbia, Maryland, went to high school there. And I feel very lucky and very fortunate and very blessed that my mother, God rest her soul, I lost her when I was 12 years old, but she taught me at a very young age and instilled in me that all human beings are human beings. And whatever color or religion or wherever they're from in the world, or wherever they are in the world, they're valuable and they're important and they matter to God and they matter to the universe and they should matter to all of us. And years and years later, I learned the saying of the Holy Prophet that we should take care of our neighbors 40 in every direction. And that was really the same kind of concept my mother taught me. And it's a beautiful concept. And it's one that I've carried with me throughout my entire life. And I remember in my childhood where I grew up in a neighborhood that had white children and black children. My mother never, not once, hesitated to invite the black children over to the house, and I would play with them. And we were just kids playing. And there was never from my mother any racism, not even a hint of it. She was a kind of person that loved all human beings and made sure that she taught me this concept that I've never forgotten. And it has carried me all over the world in disaster response and relief, where I have looked upon my fellow human beings who are suffering as human beings and nothing more or nothing less.
Thank you, Todd. I mean, let me go back to the very basic concept. Of course, we keep hearing that we all are children of Abraham, different Abraham or Adam or Eve. So the color, I mean, whenever a baby is born, that baby, he or she does not know what is their gender, what is their color, what is their faith or religion. We, the human beings, men or women, tell our kids that, well, you are white, you are brown, you are black, you belong to a certain race, you belong to a certain religion. Isn't that right? Would you agree with me, Tom?
Yes, I would agree that that happens. I I think that we should celebrate our differences rather than using them to attack each other. I think God gave us a tremendous variety and diversity so that we would know each other and love each other and to test each other to see what we're all about inside. Because, really, skin color is really just tied to the area that our ancestors are from in the world. If it's near the equator, then there was more sunlight. So those people needed more melanin in their skin to protect them from skin cancer and from being burned by the sun. So in the more northern areas where the sun wasn't as strong and where the weather was different, people's skin became lighter because they didn't need as much melanin to protect them from the sun. So skin color is really nothing more than that. And for us to have divided each other so sharply and so terribly and so unfortunately because of this thing, it is a very unfortunate thing. Rather, we should be celebrating each other and each other's beauty for our differences. If everybody were exactly looking the same, what a boring world we'd live in.
So coming back to the country that we live in, old Americans, Irish American, Italian American, Afro American, Pakistani American, New American. The question to you, Todd, is that are we going to be keep dividing ourselves between different philosophies, different being Republican, being Democrat, but Green Party, Independence? Are we going to be keep dividing our country, weakening our society, or do you still see a hope that we can move forward? Go ahead, Todd.
I do see hope that we can move forward, but unfortunately, we're going through a very, very, very difficult time of reconciling all of these issues of our past and our future and our present state. And unfortunately, what is happening, there's a couple things happening. Number one, the political left and the political right at its extremes. Each extreme is trying to take over the narrative and trying to hijack a lot of these issues for their own aims, for fascist aims, for very extreme political leanings from each side of the spectrum to try to make headway for their causes. Unfortunately, at both ends of the spectrum, politically, right or left, they become fascism and they become evil. And people don't realize that, but if we look through history, we will find evidence of this. So the center mass of humanity and people in the country are being bombarded by each side, who are just as extreme as the other in very different ways, but at the same, they lead to the same thing, which is destruction and death and division. The hope that I have is that we can get past that and that we can start seeing that we're being manipulated and come to sensible conclusions of how we can come together. Unfortunately, right now, there's not a lot of sense in going on. There's a lot of anger and a lot of frustration. And the second thing that is happening here is that the white majority is being manipulated by Trump and by the extreme right supremacists and racists. They're being manipulated to be scared that people of color are starting to become the majority and that whites are becoming the minority. So too many whites are afraid of change. I, as a white American, see change as a very good thing. The equality of all people finally starting to come and starting to manifest itself in society. And now we're seeing a pushback from those people who don't want to see that change. They're afraid of that change. And that is causing a lot of political leaders who want to take advantage of that politically for their own aims. They want to manipulate people in fear and hatred so that they can get more power from those people. And unfortunately, those people, white included, will be among the most that are going to be hurt because the change in our society and in the world is a wave that if you go to the ocean and you try to put your hand in front of a wave to stop it, it's not going to stop it. It's a wave that is too strong. It's going to come whether you like it or not. And justice for people of color, for people who have been exploited and mistreated and abused for millennia, are going to finally start to be able to find their place in the world with equality for their children, for their families. And those that don't like it are going to have to accept it because it is a wave that is coming. The population of people of color is growing, while the white American and white European populations are decreasing. And over time, this country is going to be a country of people of color. I see that as a very, very good thing. I see that as a wonderful thing. I always, from a small child, learned the phrase that, you know, the oppressed and the meek shall inherit the earth and one day be the strong. And so to me, it's just a kind of poetic justice that those people who have been most abused and exploited and mistreated through racism and through exploitation, through fear and hatred, that those are the people that are going to inherit this country. And I think that's a wonderful and beautiful thing. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are afraid of that because maybe they know that white European Americans have had advantage for 400 years, have not given people the right to a vote, have exploited their land and their labor and taken away freedoms. And for generations and generations and generations, for 400 years, those oppressed peoples and their families have suffered. And no wonder they're struggling still today of how much we've stolen from them and how much advantage we've taken. So many people, maybe they fear that those people of color will mistreat them in the same way when they become the majority as their ancestors were treated. Well, I find that not to be true. I find my African brothers and sisters and Muslim brothers and sisters to, by and large, be extremely wonderful, fair-minded, beautiful people. And I don't think they have that kind of evil in them, that they would do the same to us. But unfortunately, I think that white Americans are being manipulated with fear to believe that they're going to lose their rights and their privileges and their freedoms. I just think that it's going to be made more equal. And I think if made more equal, then society will be healthier and all of us will be happier if that happens. I don't believe that people of color and minorities are going to end up, hurting.
You said it all very well, very articulate. But my question is, Todd, you already said that 400 some years of mistrust and structural flaws statewide, at the local level, at the national level. What is the way forward? You know, how can we fix those issues? How can we create linkages and bridges for those all mistrust? Nobody's trusting black is not trusting white, vice versa, and other people. And when you say manipulation by the players and the actors are from both sides, even blacks and whites. There are players to manipulate those fears. What is the way forward? What do you suggest?
Well, there has to be communication. There has to be empathy for both sides, for all sides. There's more than just one, two sides. There are so many sides to this, and it's a complicated set of circumstances, and human beings are complicated. So we have to have empathy in our hearts. We have to start looking at what the other is going through and feeling and trying to come to some happy common ground, some medium. I think that the death of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and others recently have finally hit a critical mass where even those people who are resisting change and resisting these forces are now seeing it. Corporations are responding, people are responding, schools are responding, institutions are responding. And so there is, out of this horrible, horrible murder and destruction and death of our black community members at the hands of police, now we're finally having conversations about police corruption, police brutality, why they are not being held accountable in a country that is supposed to be all about law and order and accountability for everyone, no matter who they are. These conversations are being had. People are being educated. And so I do think that eventually some good will come of this in the short term. And hopefully in the long term, people over time will start to understand that the change in the systemic structures in our society that have benefited only one group and have exploited many other